Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today, our topic is going to be about mental health. For every dozen people you meet, a certain percentage of them will struggle with an issue of mental health. Now, it may be as simple as mild depression. It may be a manic depressive disorder. It could be in a wide array of things that trouble them. It could be as simple as mere anxiety. But for most of us, we're able to manage. We have resources through insurance and other ways to get the help that we need so that we can function in society. But there is a certain percentage of people that do not have those resources and are not able to function. And that's where county mental health services come in. They help provide the help to help them integrate into society. That will be the topic of our roundtable today as we bring you our discussion from the Washington County Courthouse. Right now, though, we are going to start with a story that talks about the way that some counties are dealing with the issue of mental health, and it's called Mental Health Court.
I believe that the largest psychiatric center in the United States, last I checked, was the Los Angeles County Jail. So traditionally, unfortunately, most of our psychiatric services have been performed in jails across the country.
The criminal justice system is designed to bring balance to society by allowing people who have committed a crime to serve their time and then reintegrate into their community. It was never intended that prisons would become warehouses for the mentally ill, and yet more and more, that has become the case. That fact has pushed public mental health services into the spotlight as urban and rural areas alike work to change how people with mental illness are diagnosed and treated.
I think it's important for folks to understand the unique role that the public behavioral health system plays. We're not your other private, we're not like your private providers. We're unique because we serve a population that the private providers don't have funding for, that we do. The unfunded that rise to a level of seriousness that nobody else can handle. That comes because we are tied to the county and part of that county role. We are often referred to as the safety net.
Those services include mental health courts, where people who have found themselves in the criminal justice system can avoid jail time if they participate in a treatment program. The program consists of an assigned team that monitors an individual, making sure they show up to mental health court, get mental health and substance abuse treatment, and provides a support system to help them avoid incarceration.
People receiving the appropriate treatment, the recidivism rate is much lower, so they're not out there impacting the community in a negative way. In fact, the idea is that as they progress towards recovery, that they reintegrate in the community and contribute and work and have positive relationships with their neighbors and communities and families.
Organizations like the Southwest Behavioral Health Center provide support services for mental health, substance abuse, and prevention. They've partnered with Beaver, Iron, Garfield, Kane, and Washington counties to provide services to people who otherwise would be lost in the system.
One of the values of our being combined under 5 counties is the ability of the counties to allow us to pool those resources. And in doing so, that gives some benefit to those rural counties.
While pooling resources can help, there is a challenge to fully funding these services. Recently, discussions about the expansion of Medicaid and the reinvestment in criminal justice have a direct impact on how mental health programs will evolve in the future.
But the reality is we've got to treat both aspects. We can't just treat substance use. We can't just treat mental illness. We have to treat both of these things together if we're really going to have a long-term solution. There is a population that exists both on the mental illness side and on the substance use side who currently they have no resource. We deal with them just about every day of folks that fall into the category that if Medicaid had been expanded, we would probably be treating them right now. But because we don't, and we don't have any other resources, they're not getting treatment.
When we return from the commercial break, we'll discuss the challenges for the Sheriff's Office when mental illness becomes a public safety concern. For the County Seat, I'm Terry Wood.
Shopping in Davis County has never been better. Experience Station Park, Northern Utah's premier gathering place for shopping, dining, and entertainment. With over 100 shops, Station Park is something for the whole family. Or explore the shopping possibilities this season under one roof at the Layton Hills Mall. Both are conveniently located north of downtown Salt Lake, just off I-15. Come take advantage of special discounts and a wide selection of stores. Visit playindavis.com for more info.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
There are a couple great things about the Uinta Basin. One is it's still small, it's community. That makes you feel like when you go somewhere, you know everybody. When you know your neighbor, and your neighbor knows you, and you can trust each other, people look out for one another.
I grew up in the Uinta Basin, and I think that it's a good place to raise a family.
So we packed up our 3 kids, and here we came to Uinta County, and what a great place it was.
It's not too big, it's not too small.
And it has a lot to offer that you just don't get in the big city anymore.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about mental health services. In particular, we've been discussing mental health court, which takes place down here in the southwest corner of the state of Utah. Joining us for our conversation today is the Washington County Sheriff, Corey Pulsifer, a Washington County Deputy, Allie Snow, and Mike Deal, who's the Executive Director of the Southwest Behavioral Health Center. When does a county step in to help somebody who's suffering with mental health issues?
Okay. So, there is a bit of a history in Utah. We have a Utah State Hospital, which has been around since the 1800s, which is pretty similar years ago to many of the state hospitals around the nation, where people were housed that had mental illness, had other disorders. They were there quite regularly. They filled up. I think in the 1950s, there were probably 500,000 people residing in these institutions around the nation. I'm giving you this little history because I think it's important to see how it impacts the county today. In the 1960s, President Kennedy signed the Community Mental Health Act, which really said, let's get these people out of these institutions and get them back into the counties, into their homes, into the cities where they live, and get treatment there, provide it there. Let's not house them in institutions. And that really was kind of the impetus for what we have today here in southwestern Utah in Southwest Behavioral Health Center. It's a county entity. Individual counties have that responsibility. Ultimately, in our 5 Southwest County area, the counties came together under state law and said, because of economies of scale or whatever the issue might be, it's better that we do this together. And we take advantage of the 5 of us together providing these services rather than trying to do this individually or on our own.
When does the Sheriff's Department get involved in a case like this?
Usually when there's an outbreak or some type of law violation that involves these individuals within the community that actually gets law enforcement's involvement in there. Whether it be somebody trying to medicate themselves by doing drugs, or whether it's because they're not taking them and they have an outbreak and there's an assault or a family fight, or lots of different things, but we don't get involved through the Sheriff's Office until there's an actual violation or law or disruption to the community because of the behaviors of that mental illness.
How do you know? I mean, this is the thought that just runs through my head. I'm watching this show and say, okay, well, you're responding to an assault or you're responding to some domestic outbreak. How do you know when there's a mental health issue at play or whether there's somebody who's just ticked off?
And we try and provide lots of training to our deputies and all law enforcement throughout the county. They attend the CIT training with the crisis intervention training. hopefully they can pick up on cues and different things from the behavior that might say, hey, this isn't just a guy that's mad, or this isn't just a guy that's probably had too much meth or whatever, and there's an overdose type thing or that's causing the behavior. This is a mental health issue, because there's a lot of times in dealing with those individuals that takes very special skills. And so we try and provide as much training as we can to every one of the officers out on the street, as well as those that are inside the correctional facility, to try and deal with those. But again, it's a guessing game to a certain extent.
So have you encountered this in the field, Allie, as far as coming across somebody? Is it really hard to assess when there's a mental health issue or not?
Well, that's tough to say. In some cases, it's pretty evident, unfortunately. Other cases, there's a history with that individual, and we're familiar with them from other calls. We are trained to seek out identifiers that will lead us to believe that there is a mental illness, and how to handle that on a case-by-case basis.
How do you integrate with the Southwest Behavioral Health Center?
Well, once an individual gets arrested or taken into custody, most of the times they end up over at my jail. And this is one of the problems that all law enforcement has had, is that jails are mostly warehouse. We do have a lot of programs and things that we do to try and provide for people that are in there. But again, it's a very small basis, and usually it takes them being in there for a little while to get them into some of these programs. So with their involvement getting into the courts, if they can determine that there's some type of mental illness that's going on from past history or behaviors and stuff, in dealing with the courts, through our medical department, we've got a counselor over there that helps us in identifying some of these things. We get them into the court system and let the judge know that, hey, there's some underlying issues here that need to be dealt with. That way, when the court starts to deal with whatever episode that got them into the system to begin with, they can say, okay, we've got some underlying issues. Let's look at what types of programs through Southwest Behavioral and others that we can use to then make a difference in this individual's life. Because just putting them in jail and holding them there doesn't help at all. It actually makes a lot of those issues and those behaviors worse. So with the court's assistance then, we can then bring them back out into the community with counseling services and different things, and then with the mental health court tracking system, actually have that constant contact. It's cheaper for us in the long run, and actually it's a benefit to the individual to do this tracking and through mental health court and have that involvement of all these services versus the cost of just plain housing them.
You know, I think there's, and Sheriff, you touched on this a little bit, between the tracker and the case manager, which is part of the treatment team, they really are working with that individual on a day-to-day basis. They're, whether it's housing, employment, where they're living, what the conditions of that are like, if they're living up to or adhering to the treatment plan that's been put in place. I think with the tracker, they have the ability, if there's a violation, they can take them right in if they need to do that. And it really does put all of this out there so that that individual is really responsible for their treatment and their actions. And rather than, again, putting them in jail, which really is just a disservice, it really brings them back into the community and ideally puts them back in a place where they're really productive.
When the judge deals in a mental health court, is he dealing with the criminal behavior in his adjudication as well as the mental health issues?
It's like the information you have with drug court. There's the criminal charge that's there, but they set it aside, and as long as they go through and complete the program and get to that point where they can actually graduate out, then that helps satisfy the court action. So it's a long process, but there's a lot of different players involved to make this be successful.
Cases are often dealt with either as a term of probation or as a plea in abeyance. So there are various ways of disposing of the case once the individual's completed mental health court. If it's in a plea in abeyance, then that case gets dismissed at the end of their program if they've successfully completed.
Okay. Corey's people, Sheriff Pulsiver's people, are right here in town. Yeah. But what about Beaver County? Are there some additional costs or concerns that affect them in obtaining the services?
Well, we do provide treatment services across the 5-county area. So in Beaver County, Garfield, Kane, and Iron County, we do have a treatment team that works regularly with law enforcement, both city and the county as well. While there is not a formal mental health court set up as there is in Washington County, we do have a lot of this collaboration and working together with those departments and offices as well, just on a little bit more of an informal way. And I think those are some of the things you just have to kind of make work, primarily because of, as you pointed out, just funding. It's just not there today or volume necessarily to put in place an entire mental health court.
But you need some help to expand it so
absolutely
that the outer counties can get a little bit better help with
They
it.
could.
Okay. Well, this is a good place for us to take a break. We'll take a break, come back with the county seat in a minute, and I'll answer that phone call I got in the middle of the show. We'll be back in just a minute.
When you buy Utah made and grown.
I'm a Utah's own vegetable grower. I care about the foods I produce.
Because when it comes to quality local foods, I understand the importance of Utah grown and raised.
The jobs that we enjoy are vital because Utah's Own supports our communities.
As a consumer, I look for Utah's Own products because Utah's Own is good for me and it's good for Utah.
Keep it here at home, Utah's Own.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
There is a place where young and old make connections, where kids feel like grown-ups, and grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast, where wonder is universal, and laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future, families find each other, and feelings find their home. There is a place.
Tucked away just outside of Cedar City, Utah, are two of southern Utah's best-kept secrets, Canaraville Falls and Kolob Canyons. The rare scenic views create beautiful backdrops to capture the perfect selfie. Get your selfie to Canaraville Falls or Kolob Canyons and get in on one of Utah's best-kept secrets. Go to visitcedarcity.com and access your adventure.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking today about mental health court. We are down here in St. George in Washington County for our discussion because they operate a mental health court here that has been quite successful for a 5-county area. So we left the conversation talking about the fact that you're kind of cramped sometimes and it's a little difficult to get people in for service. So, you know, as I sit here in my mind, I think of two things. I think of the Healthy Utah initiative, which is kind of on hold until they get things figured out. But supposedly that had some mental health provisions in it. And then the Reinvestment in Criminal Justice Act that was passed. Do either of those look like they're going to provide any relief?
Well, the legislature, with the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, there's about $4.5 million statewide for ongoing substance use and mental illness treatment dollars. So there's not a lot, you know, statewide. In our 5-county area, that's about $440,000, which is, I mean, that's certainly an allocation. So we're very appreciative of that. But again, the issue is certainly quite large. So I think the challenge is how do we come together with the Sheriff's Department, the issue with our jails across the 5 counties, working together with our county prosecutors. You know, where is that money going to go? What does it need to do? I think the total allocation was about $11.9 million, and a good amount of that's going to corrections. There's about $2.5 million that's available to the counties under some form of incentive grant that they can seek. So I certainly think it's a start. It's something in additional, recognizing that we should be treating people more often and incarcerating them less. And I think that's part of what we're talking about here.
All right, so here's a question, and maybe you can help put this into a relative point of view for us, because I'm sitting at home watching this program right now, and I'm going, gee, $400,000 sounds like a lot of treatment. In relationship to what it costs you, is that a big part of the bucket? Is it a drop in the bucket? Where does that fall? How far does that stretch for you?
Well, across our 5-county area today, we have about a $15 million budget, which is, you know, fairly large by some comparisons. But again, when you recognize we're treating an array of illnesses with an array of services from A to Z. It goes a ways, but it just doesn't go far enough. And I think we've seen very few increases over the years. We certainly appreciate the legislature for the increases we have seen, but I think as you look at population, you look at the other changes in our community particularly, we just have not been able to keep up. And so smarter use of the dollar is about the best thing we can do, which is a good thing.
And the Sheriff's Office is just a small sliver of that. As you look at how this whole program works, a lot of the expense and stuff comes in the treatment programs. The mental health court tracker, I guess a word to use is we're the hammer that keeps them in compliance. Because without that, how do you get them to go to all their different counseling sessions and different meetings and things that they need to? And without that threat of incarceration, which they know doesn't help them at all, although sometimes they get to a point where they don't realize any of that, and it makes it tough. But we're a small portion of it, but there's still some expense that comes in. Allie, with part of her assignments, there's a small portion of funding that comes through Southwest that helps pay her wage, but it's only 20 hours a week. There's a lot of times when her time is a lot more than that. The county commissioner stepped up and says, we're going to keep this programming going. We see a benefit to the community and to what's going on, because quite honestly, having them in lockup in the jail is not helping the situation. So yes, there's costs involved. I don't think I've ever sat down and put pen to paper and figured out exactly what those things are. It's just one of the many programs that we have, with the drug court and mental health court, and then also working with the veterans group with people with special needs, because that also ties into the mental illness and everything else that's going on as well.
Well, I imagine it's pretty widespread, but you hit upon a point that I think that we will save and come back from this break. You say it's effective, so I want to talk about some of your success stories when we come back. We'll be right back on the county seat. Stay with us.
I let me be me. Oh, you know that I'm finally free. You know that let me be me. Oh, you know that I'm finally free to be me.
The farmer awakes as night releases its grip on darkness. This will always be home. As farmers, we understand that there is beauty in this solitude, and we also know that there is power in working together. The Utah Farm Bureau has always been there to fight for the needs of its members. To this day, Farm Bureau is still providing insurance to Utah's hardworking farm families, as well as your family. Utah Farm Bureau members also enjoy other benefits of membership, with discount programs on items ranging from vehicles and ATVs to health and wellness. The membership fees aren't big, but the results are. We've been around since 1916, and we're not leaving anytime soon. Utah Farm Bureau. We work for those who work to feed the world.
Have you ever wanted to recreate the world around you? Add some excitement, culture, adventure? Well, there's no need to remake the world when that perfect combination already exists. Just remember 4 words. Welcome to Weber County. In Ogden, you'll find everything you're looking for, from the top of Powder Mountain to the restaurants of our revitalized downtown. Ogden, Utah, mountain to metro and everything in between. Visit Ogden.com.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about mental health court down here in the 5-county southwest corner of the state, and we left our conversation talking about the fact that the program's effective. Of course, that always leads me with the question, if the program's effective, let's talk about it being, how effective is it? Allie, you're out there. You got your sleeves rolled up in this, so to speak. Tell me a couple of success stories or what you've observed.
I can think of several individuals over the course of my 1.5 years of being involved in the program that I hold near and dear, from watching an individual suffer or struggle from the beginning and figure it out, there'll be struggles along the way, but to watch them improve and to graduate at the end and be able to discuss what worked for them with the rest of the clients. Well, we do a formal graduation in court with the judge and with the other clients, even with the incarcerated who are also part of the program. And to see that progress from beginning to end is a treat to me, and I think it's very motivational to the other folks who are in the program.
What's your recidivism rate? Do you know? Is it pretty good?
Well, I think you'll find, you look at the statistics on both drug court and mental health court, they really do a significant job of keeping people out of the system again and again, and getting them back into work, getting them back into a home, off the street, in treatment, and maintaining that. I think we do find that very successful, and I think the data bears that out.
Do you find that most people, when they get the help and they get on their feet, that they're motivated to stay with their medication, they're motivated to stay on that right track? Or
I think they are. I mean, there is a process to this. For years we've talked about recovery in relation to substance use and people abstaining from whatever the particular addiction they've had. When it comes to mental health, recovery takes on a little different perspective. It really is that individual's choices, their life, where they want to go, their dreams, their aspirations. Sometimes there's ups and downs. So some folks who are in treatment, been through mental health court, may end up back there again someday. But I think we'll find they're one step further along to having just that much better of a life, attaining what they're looking to do. And I think that's really where we find those successes. That really, you can find that recovery is possible for these individuals.
So for both of you, just as a last comment, if you were to go back out to the legislature, what would your pitch be to get more help?
Some more money for some additional resources. I mean, right now we're working with one tracker. There's a lot more that can be done in our community with that, with the services provided through Southwest Behavioral. And having enough counselors and everything else to do these. I mean, we're showing some benefits, but again, it's with limited resources.
And I think we appreciate, the need that there are innovative programs out there. I think mental health court is one, drug court is another. I think we look to spend our money wisely, but I think we have a growing community, and ultimately, I think the resources need to be, need to keep up with the growth.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time with us. Thank you for your time with us, inviting us into your home each weekend. Remember, you can carry on this conversation. We'd love your feedback on our social media. Go to our website to find your way to our other social media, thecountyseat.tv, and you can share the program with your friends. It is online from this point forward. We'll look for you next week on The County Seat. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Be part of the solution, and we'll see you next week. If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4.